I'm Shan, president of ISP Singapore affiliate, and meanwhile, I do have a day job. I'm senior manager with no division. My background is on process automation, some CQV activities. But recent years, I've been moving into a total, not really new, but a very interesting domain. I'm doing much more on the quality and compliance. So recently, I've been enrolled to the qualified person training courses. So for anyone very new to this term, in EMA, the regulation requires to have a qualified person, QP, to release the batch. So as a QP, you will need to have an overall understanding of all these critical aspects around the manufacturing, around distribution, and even on the raw material side. So at the center of everything, of course, is our quality system. And that's why today I'm just thinking, maybe we can have a discussion around pharmaceutical packaging. So packaging isn't really a popular topic in Singapore. I didn't see it much recent years because we don't have many packaging lines in Singapore, probably only the Mark MSD one. Everyone's pretty much on the API side or the OSD, but it's not the final finished product we didn't pack here. So if you ask me about all this equipment or stuff, we have very experienced experts online together with all of us in this discussion can tell you very specific what the technical solutions. But I intend to give an overall picture of around this quality, the pharmaceutical packaging, and what we'll need to look at, like the material, equipment, facility, and of course the PQS on top of it. PQS is pharmaceutical quality system. So I'm more a facilitator to this discussion. That's why I created this interactive board. On the screen, you can see my board. I move it, you can see it, or I put in the chat a link of this board. You can join. The beauty of joining the board yourself is you can post any questions or ideas, so we can have a more interactive kind of communication. And also, I put a lot of references on this board, and you can have the access to this videos where I put some regulatory requirements standard here, and then some future trainings under ISP Singapore, so you can click in and register. And just give you an overview of this board, what I'm looking at. So those are the key topics I will touch on. And I put some ideas just to remind myself. Also, if you join the board, you can add those ideas, then I know what elements you want me to touch on. Then I have another box here for the questions. And if you have questions, we can just post it here for real time. I think that would be just like very efficient this way. Okay, if everyone's ready, I'm going to start with the pharmaceutical packaging, this topic. And of course, everything we do for pharmaceutical industry, we do for the patient, for the ones, for loved ones, for our loved ones, and we want to care for them, right? And everything starts from the patient. They're our center, and everything will eventually go back to our patients. So my experience with the pharmaceutical packaging, I started, can't remember, it's 2007, that's probably too long ago. I was working for Novo Nordisk, and this is the actual product I worked on, and it was the packaging line. We have this case, and this is an insulin injection pen. It's a device, and it's very convenient. Actually, you can set how much milliliter insulin you will need to inject, and it will have a needle, but the needle comes separately. That's why we're packing this pen. It was in the case, and then we put in the carton box here. And back then, and that was actually my first commissioning and qualification project. The first day I went to site, I actually broke the packaging line, but don't follow me in that path. For this kind of devices, back then we already have a very advanced packaging line. We have the barcode on this carton box, and we can check the barcode and to ensure that's the correct devices we're packing. So it was packed in a CNC controlled, not classified kind of environment, because that was just the pen. It's not coming into our body. The injection part is the needle. The needle was packed separately. So we will touch on that point later, that what product you're packing and dependent on what level of packaging you're talking about, primary packaging, secondary, tertiary, and you require different kind of environments and of course equipment. So packaging, why do we pack our medicinal products? Of course, the most important one probably is to protect our medicinal products. So I have some products lying around here, and if I pick the bottle, this one, I don't know if you can see it clearly, and it's a bronze-ish glass bottle. So from this color, I can tell this packaging is actually protecting a light sensitive products. So we have all those different material, different shape, and even different color to protect our medicinal products. A lot of us, I think, in the Singapore market, we're working with a biological product, and a lot of our biological products are like parenteral drugs, and they're packed. This is the primary packaging. Actually, primary packaging is the one in contact with your product. So this primary contact packet, we use the glass because glass is quite inert and it doesn't really bring in other contamination, or it doesn't react with our bio product. So all those, how you select your material, it will be dependent on your drug. So what kind of product you have, if they are humid sensitive. So we normally use this package. I didn't know it before. Actually, aluminum is very good, and it's a very good material to prevent the humidity for your medicine. If you see this pills tablet, if you can see it, actually normally we have the. Oh, I have one here. If you have the tablet, actually normally we have is this is the blister. This is the tablet blister. You have one side is with the plastic, the other side is aluminum. If you see this, both sides is with aluminum, we call it alu-alu. Alu-alu package is for the one really human sensitive medicines, tablets work. So also aluminum we use on top of this injection valve because it's very moldable, right? We want to crank this valve, we want to protect the integrity of the injection valve. And of course, on top of the little glass valve, you have the stopper. It's normally a rubber stopper. So the rubber is moldable, it's very flexible. So when it's sitting on top of the valve, actually it forms a very good seal. That's a very good sealing material. And also, this picture is a very good example. If it's injectable, right, we can push the needle into this valve. We don't have to open it totally, then it will be exposed to the environment. Then we protect our product inside this little environment and prevent from the contamination. So we know that we do process, we prefer to have closed processing system, closed process equipment, right? For our product is the same, to prevent it from the external environments. Like we spend so much effort and so much money making our drugs well, but then eventually if you don't pack it well, it's just the old effort down to the drain. So other things that I just recently learned, that the glass for this little well is actually different. They have different classes, categories for the glass. And so we have Pharmacopoeia actually giving all the monographs on the standard. So actually I didn't put this there. Anyway, so I'm someone always confused with Pharmacopoeia. It's just so long, so many different methods and monographs. We have under ISPE a very good Tech Tuesday, this one coming on 27th of April I think that's one on the US Pharmacopoeia. So if you join the board later, we can enable the link, so you can click on the link, then it will direct you straight away to the registration form. And even for the rubber, the rubber, you think this is a very good material. When you look at the rubber, you couldn't see the pores or anything, right? It's actually a porous material to me, because when it gets wet, it's very, very difficult to dry it. That's why for like injectable, like liquid injectable product, it's probably okay in that way. But if you have lyophilized freeze-dried products, then the water content in the stopper it's become very, very critical. That's why the stopper normally we treat it we sterilize it in the autoclave. For autoclave, you know, like we have the it's using steam to sanitize, to sterilize all these components. So it could come out with higher water content than you expected, than you wanted. So that's why sometimes we will need to have a dryer, the dry oven next to the autoclave to dry all the stoppers for lyophilized products. And then all those products supplied from someone, right? Stoppers and glass and aluminum, all the stuff. How we ensure the quality of all this material? Actually, that's part of the supplier assurance we'll need to set up. Supplier assurance is one of the critical elements in our pharmaceutical quality system. We'll need to, of course, do some assessment and look at the risk. Of course, everything is down to the risk. And then the risk is also a very critical element under the pharmaceutical quality system, the quality risk management. If you have interest, you can also refer to ICHQ10. That's a very good reference for understanding the QRM, quality risk management system. So, and there is also a standard available to the public on the suppliers providing your packaging material. It's PS 9000 2016. So also there's a link for that standard. If you have interest, you can have a look. But if you go through this standard for the packaging material supplier, it's very, very similar to our quality system, to what we'll need to control. You will need to have deviation, change control, all the stuff. So dependent on the risk of our material supplier, we might need to perform an on-site audit for them. And then auditing the material supplier is, again, is very much similar to auditing a pharmaceutical manufacturing, right? We need to have all this standard and system set up and procedure. Everything we do is according to the procedure. Everything we did, and we'll need to write it down. And then all this sampling, when we actually approve this material supplier, we'll need to have some agreement. It's either quality agreement or some specifications for this material. And for some materials, we'll also need to specify who's responsible for testing, for taking the QC test and sample and stuff. Right, so we only talked about the first elements to protect the medicinal product. And the second one is also very important, very hot topic recently, is for the identification and traceability. So look at your medicine bags, and well, maybe because my mom was a doctor, like when I was younger, we had a medicine cabinet with all different kinds of drugs, and I really like to read all this, whatever is written on the box. And recent year, of course, and you probably heard the word serialization. We'll have this, if you can see this thing, it's a unique identifier we put on the pharmaceutical packaging. So actually, it allows us to track down to each of the product unit, right? So one is we'll need to track down who manufactured it, and expiration date, all this information around the medicine itself. And the other thing is to fight the falsification. So that's a very, very good market, actually. If you make a fake drug, the profit is quite high. I'm not really like promoting it here. I'm just saying why there are so many falsified medicinal products, because the profit is driving people taking risk. So that's why the government and our agencies and the medicine manufacturers were spending much money and effort on fighting it. So this unique identifier, we call it under the EMA kind of regulation. We have the repository in Europe that, as EU, we have one central, not we, they have a centralized repository of all these units. And then each country also have their own repository. Until this medicine actually is, maybe it's destroyed, maybe it's returned, or it's sold to a patient, it's in my hand, then you can actually trace that information in that repository. So this is like, sometimes is how, well, our medicinal product becomes so expensive, because those repository and that system need to be maintained by somebody, right? All of our manufacturers will need to put money in that kind of system. But from another angle, that's kind of money, as a patient or end user myself, I would like to contribute to that part, right? So what we do in this pharmaceutical industry, like some of the effort and money we spend is worthwhile, like a track and trace system. Some of the effort, maybe we will need to think about it. As a patient, I probably don't want to pay for the extra money if the manufacturer and QA telling me that to revise the document, you will need to raise the change control. Just to revise maybe a term, to correct the term in the document. That much man hours spent in this whole life cycle of the product, I, as the consumer, I don't want to pay for that kind of effort. So we on the other side of the world, and we are doing manufacturing, we're providing the medicinal product to our patient. Probably every day we'll need to think, what I do is really adding value to the medicine, or it's just arguable. And also the other standard I always have is what I do, actually, if I don't do that, will it harm the product? Like if tomorrow I'm taking the product, or tomorrow my family are taking the product, am I assured that if I don't do the thing, the quality will be there? So anyway, come back to the pharmaceutical packaging, like that's the identification and traceability on the unique identifier. So actually I borrowed some very good information from SEA Vision. So Robin is online. Many thanks to Robin providing me this picture. It gives you a very good overview of the serialization, because we're often talking about serialization and how many layers are there and what kind of elements we'll need to pay attention to, right? I like this pyramid a lot because it breaks down to different level. From the level 4, that's on top of the pyramid, that's on an enterprise, on our organization, corporate kind of level. On that level, we'll need to, of course, have the system set up. We'll need to issue the unique identifier to each of the products. And so that issued onto our site level, we'll need to have a certain system operation environment, kind of the IT infrastructure set up to manage all those numbers and assigned to our site. Then level 2 is the production monitoring and production management system. That's on the equipment level. So on the equipment, we'll need to be able to perform all this functionalities required to either printing on this printing of the unique identifier onto the packaging, or we check if that's the correct identifier. And then down to level 1 is the sensing and control. We have like a barcode reader, like a camera, check on all those features. So, and on top of that is another level, is on the regulatory agency level that we just mentioned under the EMA. We will have the repository and to register all this code, and we know what is what and where it's going. So that's if we're talking about the serialization, the holistic approach, and I just borrow this picture here again. Like we have the barcode issued, and by the way, there's a very good standards for the barcode. One is ISO, one is GS1. If you go to this board, if you're interested, you can go to the GS1 website and read what kind of standard they have for the barcode. Then we issue the barcode, and then we print this code onto the packaging, or that's a sticker like I showed here. Excuse me. Actually, some of the packaging you have it printed straight away onto the box, and some you have a sticker. You apply the sticker onto the box, and then we have the machine to apply the stickers or check the stickers, and like the vision control system is checking the barcode and stuff. So it just brought me back to my first CQ project. When I was doing this no pen project, we do have a barcode. And then we have the camera to read it. And some people ask me like, how you check if the barcode reader or the camera is functioning correctly. And during the CPU testing, we actually imagine there's a barcode. We create some faulty ones. And I was so fresh to the industry, I didn't know how to make it. Then my project manager just used the marker pen and cross it off. And then the barcode reader camera could pick it out. I believe some of the suppliers, they do have the standard pieces, that's the 40 pieces, and then they can provide for the testing, see what kind of fault, what kind of faulty units your equipment, your monitoring system can pick it up. Right, so the third one is our packaging actually provide us the user instruction. It could be very simple on the box itself and tell you what's the strength of your medicinal products and what's the direction of use, but very brief one. So the detailed one is inside your box. You have this, we can call it patient information leaflet field, or some region we call it packaging insert, right? So I didn't know it before that my only issue with this piece of paper is I could never fold it back. But we have regulation on how what information you need to put in this kind of leaflet, right? Make sure it is readable, make sure even the language we put on the leaflet is actually common use, right? Don't use the very difficult word. And so the test, they will have a testing, like the user testing would probably pick like 10 end user to rate the leaflet. Then you will need to rate it if that's easy to understand, etc. And then, so it was some study showing that the average reading age in the UK, can't remember where, it's actually 8 years old. Then all this user, right? You need to pick them from different background, and the younger one who is also using your product, or the older one who might have difficulty to read your information, and then like maybe from different education background as well, to make sure that the wording you use is well understood. I used to think that the wording we put in the leaflet is very like official kind of language, but it's actually on the very much opposite. And so don't know if I put the link here. There's a directive actually where QRD, the quality review document, on how you design this and what information you will put in this. Even the artwork on the box, I used to think that's just the marketing kind of work scope or marketing approach, what you put, the information you put on the packaging. Actually, there is also a regulation requirement As a part of the quality manual or part of the company quality system, we will need to have a standard to regulate the artwork design as well. So those artwork design, we probably constantly change the packaging, and back to the PQS, we'll need to have a very good change control system to regulate every revision of your change of different material, different color of stuff. We will need to go through a proper documented change control process. And other things like the pharmaceutical packaging, it could protect the one handling the drugs. If your product is toxic, right, and the nurse and doctor and using it, you don't want them to be intoxicated. And then easy transportation, if we put everything just like this, and it wouldn't be easy to be shipped over or something like that. Easy application, this is actually, oh, well, at the point I always missed. Well, it's, see, probably this product is protected. And I heard some case study in the past, and that it's more like medical devices they use in medical gowns, right? So it's packed in a kind of like aseptic packing, but then you will need to have two hands to rip it open without touching the actual content in your packaging. But then in the actual situation, right, when doctor is busy in the emergency room seeing your patient, right, they probably use one hand to press on the bleeding point, and the other, it ends up he has only one hand, and he has to use his mouth to open the package to release the gauze. So if that, we'll also need to think for the end user, how they want to apply it, how they need to open the package. Some of the medicine, actually, it's very critical to some critical conditions. And if we can't open it immediately, right, it could cost the patient's life, unfortunately. Right, so we're talking about this material supplier, different material we use it, then some technical solutions runs the packaging, right? All those I would like to bring up our famous triangle again. On top of it's our quality, we look at our product, is the quality target product profile. You're looking at what kind of drug your patient needs. Then say it's an injectable. And then on the product itself, we have the critical quality attribute, the CQA. So for that injectable, say the product in this little vial, they will need to be sterile, and they will need to achieve certain potency. And that, like for the sterility, for example, how to achieve it, we have certain critical process parameters to help achieve the CQAs. And then how we achieve this CPPs, and 2 years ago, right, the baseline Guide 5 and on the CNQ brought up a new term on the CDE as a critical design element. And the CDE will probably always think about the facility and equipment, and also the SOP. It's a very important part of it. Without your procedure, without the system you put in place, facility alone, equipment alone won't work. So those critical design elements of your equipment will help you address the CPP and CQA, right? For example, if you say, I have an injectable, I need to fill it, and that will need to assure the sterility. And our latest information, of course, in the EU Annex 1, you'll see that asking more and more is to have your isolator. So around this equipment, on the technical solution, I always have this line, ask the expert. We are the drug manufacturer. We design, discover, manufacture the drug. Why we have to push ourselves to design equipment for us as well? And there are loads of experts in the industry actually providing those technical solutions for you. So please do ask your experts and trust your equipment supplier. There's one saying, I like it very much. It's your equipment supplier is actually an extension to your manufacturing shop floor. So I heard it quite often that, but I don't trust my equipment supplier. But why you don't trust your equipment supplier? Because you don't trust your own system. If you have a very well-established PQS, and you have your supplier assurance procedure. You establish all this risk assessment and see where the risk the equipment can bring in and how you mitigate it, and how do you need to perform an audit on site, and have you ever checked their quality system? Did you establish any quality agreement or certain responsibilities in your order, in your contract with them? All this actually forms the confidence of working with your equipment supplier together on achieving the quality of your product. Very often we see that some of the equipment doesn't function as what you expected, because at front we didn't have really good user requirements. We have this case, I wouldn't mention the site name, and they have a RAPS. It's not isolator, it's the RAPS, restricted access barrier system. So they have all this polymer panels to restrict the access of the operator into the filling line. But then just unfortunately, the opening are always at the wrong side, because when we place the purchase order to that RAP system, the user was still in kind of R&D phase, so they didn't know like where around the filling line we likely to have human intervention. So all those openings, supposedly we perform the human intervention, sometimes in the filling line, the valve fell down. Hopefully it doesn't happen often. All the same, we need to provide some access, but with isolator, we don't have that kind of issue, but also where you put the gloves could be another question. So I put another example here, is the Bfs filling process. So Bfs, it's a new technology, and it's also promoted by regulatory a lot. If we look at this, probably seal is you feed. It's my internet connection unstable. So you feed the plastic polymer resin, or say, into the equipment, and it molds the container straight away in that piece of equipment, and fill your medicinal product right into the molded container, then seal it. Just minimize. I have a video here. If anyone never seen blue fill seal. So yeah, that's it. And it's not played. Okay. Right, just come down. It's a very short video, actually shows how it works. And I like this animation. I like watching the packaging line. It's just so neat. Everything is so streamlined. You're feeding this raw material into your equipment. And of course, for this raw material, you will need to have supplier assurance around it. Then it started to mold the container you want. This is to mold. Then you have the filling needle right in the middle. Then it's filling straight away into your container. Then you seal it. Right, so I wouldn't show the whole video just for the interest of the time, but I keep this link here. So if you have interest, then you can watch the video on your own time. I also provided some, I didn't go through because we didn't really have much time. The safety feature on the packaging, like tamper evident or stuff, like how you protect the label, etc. Right. Okay. So that's on the equipment. Like I also borrowed photo here, the BFS and isolator is more like on the primary packaging, on the filling. And then on the secondary, you have all this whole line design really neat. You have the item, you pack the item, you check the identity, and then you have the bundle. Bundle here is just a different term, like you put all this units together, right? And some of the regulatory authority actually require you to have the unique identifier for the bundle as well. Not in the EMA though. So the bundle identifier, actually, even the regulatory requirement doesn't require it. It also provides some convenience for the company. Say you put this like 100 units into this bundle, right? If you have one identifier on this bundle, a quick scan of that identifier, you can tell what contents, how many units, what unit actually in this bundle, instead of checking each of them. If you have any issue along the supply chain, right? If you find any items missing or something, you wouldn't need to go through everything to check where the issue is. You can just scan the bundle and get the information for the whole bunch. And also the technical solution we mentioned, we just shown it here, like we have all this control solution, IT solution as well. So put some picture here, like the camera is not just for the barcode. Actually, now the vision inspection system actually can look at your product. See, those are the tablet filled in a blister, so it can identify this blister in one compartment. You have two tablets, and also it picked out the tablet actually missing a small part of it. Then, excuse me, of course, the conventional one, you have checking on the barcode, on this expiry date, etc. So, and the equipment were maybe from my background, we're all very familiar with all this equipment from a design perspective, right? We achieve the quality by design. We start build the quality in our design document. We have the URS upfront. In the URS, we identify what requirements is actually quality critical and safety critical, business critical. Then this URS is the foundation for equipment supplier to build the equipment. And of course, if we involve them earlier in the design phase, right, they could provide some very good technical solution. That technical solution can register in our URS as well. And then the supplier design is actually either reviewed or in the later phase qualified to as per the URS. So don't wait until the equipment is built or you already shipped on your side, you started checking the quality. If we didn't design it well and in the URS or in the design review, we didn't pick anything out, then it doesn't matter how many times we test it, it just wouldn't pass. It wouldn't be fit for our intended purpose. So commissioning qualification, I wouldn't stress too much here as for the URS, right? And the very important thing, again, back to our system. After you qualify the equipment, you will need to set up a very efficient maintenance and calibration system to ensure your equipment is maintained in the qualified status. We always say that the state of control, actually qualification is never, or even you perform validation is never under the story. And what happened after is the continued qualification. You will need to maintain your qualified status. And then look at all this beautifully made equipment, right? Those are the input we'll need to consider into our facility design. Though it's the same isolator, if you buy your isolator from different made, they come with different shapes and different sizes, right? So if you didn't consider that in your facility design, you probably will find issues with your layout in the later stages. So that's also another point why we'll probably want to involve the equipment supplier earlier, so they can provide the input even to this facility design, layout design. And so, of course, equipment design, we give the input to the facility, also the packaging design, right? So what kind of packaging form we're talking about? Again, we're talking about if parenteral, it's fill finish, and it's septic or sterile, we'll consider a higher grade of clean room. So those are two examples of the clean room, right? So even we are filling the same product, sterile, parenteral, with different equipment, we will have different clean room requirement as well. So on the top, we have a RAPS, restricted access barrier system that we mentioned before. And RAPS is not like entirely closed system. So that's why this is the RAP system, and on top of that, the room HVAC and the room classification will still need to maintain a Class D, Grade D background. But with an isolator, actually, it's like totally closed. We can have a Grade C or D depending on your product requirement around this isolator. Isolator, one is, of course, to guarantee the quality of your product, and you have very limited intervention of your operator going into the operator, going into the isolator, etc. It's also like with a lower grade of clean room, you save a lot of money, and not just upfront on the capex, capital investment, but operation side, your HVAC costs actually it's a big part of your operation costs. So, and layout design, we talk about the clean room environment, then how we place our equipment around and where to put it. We need to think about like what kind of operation we have. Just give a very, very simple example here. Primary, and probably the primary is your higher class of area. You have your Class D for the tablet and Class A, Class B for the filling. Then come to the secondary area, it's just so much lower class with the clean room. Probably you have a CNC, that's good enough. Then you have some IPC area, that's the in-process control. And that's very critical as well. So you take your in-process control samples and you can identify and see if there's any issue going on with this batch. Kanban, you put your tools and etc. Finish the good, you of course pack everything, put it there. So for some medicinal facility, right, especially if like OSD tableting, we have the packaging area shared between different product, or even it's the same product, you have different strength. If you have a mix up of different product, mix up of different strength, it could be fatal to your patients. So that's why we'll need to have segregation between different lines. Of course, the best is you have totally physical segregation between them. Some of the facility we couldn't achieve it. We put some barrier in between, but it's higher than human kind of barrier, then it's not up to the ceiling. And it's all based on your risk assessment. I can't give you just one solution that you have to have certain barrier, or you have to have a total different process room. Also dependent on the product, right? If you're producing two products, one is toxic, one is not, of course you have total probably different facility even to make them. Right. So we also talked about IT infrastructure and operation system, like we showed earlier on the serialization. We'll need to have this kind of enterprise system, IT infrastructure to set up to enable all those technologies we want to have, like checking and printing barcode, etc. I wouldn't go into details for the sake of time, but to support the equipment of facility, like we said previously, if we only have all this hardware, we don't have a procedure, nothing will work, right? And procedure, I think we're all very familiar with that. We will need to have it written, and you have to update it frequently. For the critical ones, probably 3 years, you will need to review it. Even after you reviewed it, there's nothing changed. you will need to document this review activity, and you will need to document your conclusion that we reviewed the document and everything is still valid, something like that. Right. So also mentioned earlier that the equipment and facility need to be maintained. Otherwise, like it wouldn't be under the state of control. So you totally lost your qualified status. And other things around the operation, like line clearance, is very important for packaging. So maybe we're all coming from a bulk, like a bio drug substance kind of background, right? We don't have to perform so tedious line clearance, but for packaging, imagine how many small packs and small units and packaging material, all your leaflets, and sometimes you have labels. All those things need to be really properly controlled. And between the batches, we'll need to perform the line clearance, and dependent on what you have, dependent on your campaign actually. So you decide to what kind of level you will need to clean down the line, perform your line clearance, right? Imagine we have a label didn't clear from the last batch. Actually, that label was for a strength of a very, very small strength. Then you put on the next drug box, and that happened to be a very high strength drug box. And then the patient taking it, thinking it's probably just 10 milligrams. Actually, it's 50 milligrams that could kill him. So, and this is all our procedures, and we need to set out. And from the starting of the packaging activity, we'll need to set up the line. So for set up the line, we also need to have certain form. Of course, you probably have a very advanced facility. Everything is online. It's computer-based, not it's paperless solution, let's call it. And then even your IPC in between, we'll need to register all the IPC, how many IPCs we took, and our inspection on the IPC, what's the result, etc. So talking about IPC on beside the packaging line, we normally have a rejection box as well. So well, IPC station and the injection box, we will need to have clearly control of these two, don't mix up them. And the injection box is also a very good source of information. Well, everything pushed into the rejection box, right? Don't just throw them. You probably need to perform a very thorough investigation on the rejection. If that's a very isolated case where that happens a lot, then you would need to identify the root cause. And then talking about that, we come to the PQS as well. And then we will need to propose a CAPA solution on that, corrective and preventive action. So CAPA is a core element in the PQS that drives the continued improvement within the organization. Right, what else? How the rework? Yeah, that's a very interesting topic. A lot of my clients ask me that if rework and reprocessing is allowed. Actually, in the if you read the registration, the regulation requirement, it is allowed. But regulatory agencies tend to be really careful in recent years with the reprocessing and rework. So for some agencies, they require you to validate your reprocessing and rework process. Of course, that's it sounds very logical to me that everything you do needs to be validated. And also, if we have a rework, even it's very simple, by packing some tablets into a carton, then see, oh, actually it was rejected because we put two pill, the patient information leaflet in the box. It doesn't harm the patient, so we can take it out. So I put this blister at the start of the line and go through and pack it again. So rework, we always need to start from the very beginning. You can't go somewhere in the middle of the line, then process it again. But rework, so think you will need to establish all the procedures. Maybe you will need to modify some equipment or have some other components to enable the rework. So why don't we put this effort and money improving our system, or improving our procedure or equipment to totally avoid the rework? Right, don't have much time left. Then the last stop before the product reached our patient is our distribution system, or the logistics. Then, of course, our bio product is always requires cold chain. So for the cold chain, right, our shipping validation becomes really critical. How we ensure whatever vehicle or even the plane or the container could achieve the certain temperature we require, and it's very homogeneous, and then it could also maintain that temperature during the whole shipments. And we also will have some monitoring in between. Our distributor will need to be certified as well. So GDP, with it's not good documentation practice here, it's a good distribution practice here. So if you're interested, I put some links here. One is from the EMA. The directive actually was updated in 2013, and that's the latest one. And the EMA provided some guideline on that, how you rate it. But if you rate all this guidance on the GDP, it's pretty much the same with the GMP philosophy. You will need to have your PQS and your quality system. You will need to maintain the data integrity. All your process will be validated, and you will need to constantly review your validated process. So one of my friends actually working in the supply chain, and she told me that she will need to go qualify and validate the logistics flow. It's just amazing how much qualification and validation work we perform in the pharmaceutical industry. Everything will need to be validated. Anyway, so managing the distribution on warehouse side under the EMA regulation, the person will, you will need to have a responsible first person for that. It's like you have a marketing authorization, you have the MA for manufacturing certain drug, right? Then you have your qualified person to release that drug. Then for the distribution warehousing side, you have equivalence kind of responsible person for that. And then you will need to have the authorization. It's not marketing, it's the wholesale distribution authorization for your distribution partner. So all those you will need to check. If you sign any quality agreement or stuff, you will need to check they have those in place, and you will need to specify what kind of responsibilities they will need to have. So I also put the link here is from the HSA. For the HSA, mentioned that GDP certificate is actually voluntary, but it's I would assume it's good. If I'm a manufacturer, I would want my distribution supplier have that. So I put a very interesting video here. We can just quickly have a look. I wouldn't show the whole video. So this is the distribution line. Could see probably I'll drag it. How automated the system is, and there's so many different procedures and different process to handle our distribution. But you can watch this video on your own time. But I want to show this at the end of distribution. Right, this is the distribution truck, and this guy delivering this drug to the pharmacist just left the truck open. So all this effort you put at the beginning, all the securities you provide around the medicine, just one last step there, it could ruin the whole effort, right? You left the drug open. It could be accessed by other people. And also, it's not just the end of supply chain. So we are the end of supply chain, right? So when we receive this medicine, do we actually store our medicine under the right condition? That's why all this very important leaflets come into the picture. And I've heard a lot of people just, oh, I put all my medicines in the fridge. Like, probably don't. Some medicines, if you store them in a lower temperature kind of environment, it will lose the potency as well. So really just follow the instruction. That's why sometimes in Singapore, I know like our pharmacies always distribute the medicines in this plastic bags, and because you don't need the whole box, and sometimes you only need half of this blister pack, so they will cut it. But then like on this blister, it has the information of expiration date or stuff. And then without the leaflets, you probably don't, I don't see any like storage condition for this product. So it's a practice, but I don't really like it. So, and then of course, arrive to the end of my my talk today. We go back to the patient again. Sorry, I probably dragged a little too much. I don't know if there's any questions. I don't see any questions on the board. Maybe it's in the chat. Let me quickly check. Hey, have some issue. Linda, do you see any questions asked in the chat?
No.
Okay, cool. I was leaving some time for the questions, but
yeah,
you can ask me after this session anyway. Did I go too fast?
Shanshan,
Hey,
Mone here.
Yeah.
I would like to express my congratulations to you in the way you present these things, and the technology and Klaxon and the touchboard and everything is really interesting to see and listen to you. So express a lot of, it's attractive way to follow our speech. Congrats. And of course, it's interesting topics, the packaging and transportation. I would like just add that the track wasn't recorded in Italy. I was expecting that it's in Italy, but because but the words are in Spanish probably. So
it is. I think it was.
Yeah. Sometimes happen that, especially in the crowded city, that trucks just stop in front of shops and leave the doors open. Maybe won't be the best practice. It's not the best practice actually to leave doors open where the freezer is working, but it's a common things, I think.
Yeah.
And well, that's also really nice. Bravo.
Thank you so much, Simone. I just brought up a very important point I forgot to touch. It's a quality mindset actually. We need to provide this kind of training to everyone. So maybe the delivery guy, he didn't understand, like I left the truck open, what kind of consequences that will have. One is like somebody will touch the medicine. The other thing is that truck could be a part of the supply chain. If you leave the door open, you totally lost the storage condition of that medicine.
Of course, the truck is of course a part of the supply chain. So if you leave the door open, maybe in a hot spot like maybe in Singapore, won't be nice for the material inside.
Yeah, definitely. Good. Linda, do we wait a few minutes for the questions, or?
Well, does anyone have any questions or comments to add? Thank you, Simone, for yours.
You're most welcome, Linda.
And if we, so if there are no other questions or comments, I think we want to thank Shanshan for a very interesting presentation. Christina and I could almost understand it. But it was very interesting. Thank you very much.
Guys.
Thank you for sharing your time with us and for a very interesting and interactive format.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shanshan.
Thanks, Shanshan. Thanks to everyone. Goodbye. Ciao, ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Bye. Talk soon.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye, Shanshan.
Bye, Robin.
Ciao, Robin.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye, Robin.
Bye.
Okay, I'm leaving. I'm ending the meeting. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.